This is Robert Jones. Today we're going to continue with our course on the top 25 reformers of the 16th century, the Protestant reformers. We are on number 14 today, Peter Martyr Vermigli. He was born September 8th or 9th, 1499 in Florence, Italy. So we don't have too many Italian reformers, but Peter Martyr was one of them. 1514, he becomes a novitiate in the canons regular of St. Augustine, educated at the Lateran congregation of the Austin Canons Cloister at Badia Fiosolana, Italy, and he adopted the name Peter Martyr from the earlier saint. 1518 to 26, he continued education at St. John of Verdara in Padua, Italy, studying theology. And in 1525, he was ordained as a priest. And as so many of the reformers in the 16th century, he was a reformer from inside the establishment, inside the established institutes of religion, the Catholic Church. And he was not somebody knocking on the door from the outside. 1526, he graduated with a Doctor of Divinity and became a preacher in several Italian towns, including in Venice and in Rome. He continued his education from 1530 to 33. He studied Hebrew in Bologna. 1533, he was elected prior of the Augustinian monastery at Spoleto. 1537, he was a prior of the monastery of St. Peter at Aram in Naples. 1540, he participated in the Colloquy of Worms, representing the Catholic viewpoint. He was accused of erroneous doctrine and prohibited from preaching by the Viceroy of Naples. The prohibition was eventually removed by Cardinal Pole and others. So in 1540 we start to see that he's starting to have viewpoints that are not in line with official Catholicism, more in line with the budding Lutheran and Reform movements. 1541 he becomes prior of the Basilica of San Frediano in Lucca, Italy. 1542 he flees Lucca after having been summoned to appear before his order for his ever-growing Protestant views, and he eventually heads, as so many reformers on the run did, to Switzerland, this time to Zurich. He's appointed a professor of Hebrew and Old Testament in Strasbourg by Martin Bousset himself. He also gets married to Catherine Damartin, and a lot of stuff happens to him in 1542. 1547, he's appointed Regius Professor of Divinity at Oxford and Canon of Christ Church by Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer. So now he is involved in English, in the English Reformation. 1548, he supports the Reformed view of the Eucharist in a disputation with 3 Roman Catholic theologians. 1552, he was consulted on the creation of the Anglican Book of Common Prayer. 1553, he consulted on the creation of the Anglican 42 Articles of Religion, and he returned to Strasbourg after the ascendancy of Queen Mary I to the throne in England. He became a professor of theology, but clashed with Lutherans in France over the nature of the Eucharist and predestination. 1556, at the request of Heinrich Bullinger, he became a professor in Zurich. 1557, theologian Theodor Bibliander challenges Peter to a duel using a double-edged axe over the doctrine of predestination. Bibliander was dismissed from his post in 1560. 1561, he attended the colloquy at Poissy with Theodor Beza, intended to bring Catholics and Protestants closer together. Now, all of those attempts in the 16th century on the Protestants' part to bring Protestants and Catholics closer together, all, of course, were doomed to failure. Also in 1561, he wrote a strong defense of the doctrine of predestination in a defense of a colleague at Strasbourg. He died November 12th, 1562 in Zurich, and indeed Switzerland did seem to be the place he was most accepted and most comfortable during his career as an evangelist. 1563, a biography of Peter Martyr Vermigli was published by his friend Josiah Simbler. 1576, a compendium of his work was published in Latin, and then in 1583, a compendium of his work was published in English. So Peter Martyr Vermigli is perhaps one of the lesser known of the 16th century reformers. Like many other reformers, he accepted Protestantism from within the bosom of the Roman Catholic Church. He was not a force on the outside trying to get in. He was both a priest and a monk, an Augustinian monk like Martin Luther, and served as a prior of 3 different monasteries in Italy. During his time as a monk and prior in Italy, he became more and more accepting of Protestant belief, especially on topics such as justification and the nature of the Eucharist. He eventually started expounding on his views in public, both within the monastery and without, and of this, of course, drew the negative attention of Roman Catholic officials. He finally chose to flee to Zurich when the Inquisition was being reconstituted within Italy. Peter Martyr advanced the cause of Protestantism, especially Reformed theology, in actually 3 different countries. In Switzerland, where he served as a professor at the request of Bullinger. In England, at the request of Thomas Cranmer, where he helped craft the Anglican Book of Common Prayer and the 42 Articles of Religion. And in France, where he served as a theology professor under Martin Bousset. For a man virtually unknown today, he was consulted by scholars including Cranmer, Bullinger, Bousset, and others during his life in the 16th century. A friend of his, Josiah Simler, wrote a biography of Peter Martyr after Vermigli's death. And on the day before he died, some of his friends being present with him, and especially Bullinger among the rest, he lay a certain peace meditating with himself. Then turning unto us, he testified with speech plain enough that he acknowledged life and salvation in Christ alone, who was given by the Father and only favor unto mankind. And this opinion of his he declared and confirmed with reasons and words of Scriptures, adding at the last, "This is my faith, and this will I die. But they which teach otherwise and draw men any other way, God will destroy them." This is on the deathbed of Peter Martyr Vermigli.